Think you're being stalked, harassed, or threatened? Yeah, many people do. In fact, on a daily basis, there are domestic violence restraining orders and civil harassment restraining orders and elder abuse restraining orders, and so many restraining orders filed. And much of it is on the basis of harassment, stalking, and threats. Certainly, if you're getting physically abused or any kind of abuse, that is a no brainer. But let's talk about stalking, harassment, and threats. Welcome to Gavels Down, Voices Up, where we flip the script on conventional legal discussions. I'm Rachel King, here to guide you through the murky waters of family law, estate conflicts, inheritance disputes, all of the dramas. We're not just talking about law, we're talking about how it affects your life, your rights, your future, and your money. From the courtroom to your living room, we bring you insights that matter. Dive into each episode ready to challenge, learn, and grow. Ready to change the dialogue? Let's begin. Gavels down, voices up. So, stalking, harassment, and threats actually are legal terms of art that in the legal field, it has a specific definition that's maybe different than the other definition or any colloquial uses. If somebody's following us, or we even think they're following us, or they show up or they call twice, we might say, oh my gosh, they're harassing me, they're stalking me. But that doesn't actually mean they are. Same with threatening. What is a threat? What is stalking and what is harassment under the law? I can tell you one thing, it's probably very different from what you think it is or what your friend says it is. If you are actually getting stalked, actually getting harassed, and actually getting threatened under the legal definition, and a court agrees, yeah, you're going to get a restraining order granted because that's exactly what they are for preventing. Doesn't mean the harassment, the stalking, and the threats are going to end, but at least there's some kind of repercussions like getting arrested for violating the restraining order. So this one time, a man brought all of this paperwork to me and said, I am so tired of getting harassed by this woman that I met and chatted with online. And I kind of rolled my eyes in my own head, not outwardly. And I said, oh, yeah? Why do you think you're getting harassed? Because most people misuse the word harassment. Well, out comes about 600 pages of text messages, missed calls, voicemail transcripts, emails. I mean, the written documentation that was put before me was overwhelming. Needless to say, I couldn't review it all right in that moment. But as I flipped through, we're talking hundreds of phone calls in the course of a few hours. Emails set in the middle of the night, minutes apart, without any kind of responses involved. We are talking text messages that were just incessant. Here's the kicker. None of it was inappropriate. It was all confessing love, giving stories. Nothing about it was bad. Nothing about it was threatening or would instill fear in even a regular person. This guy was a bit tough, right? None of it was negative. It was a bit overwhelming, the life that this person thought that she was going to be having with him. Nonetheless, as I looked at it, I thought, well, this probably is harassment. I mean, who wants to get hundreds of phone calls while they're at work? You might say, well, he could just block her. Sure. But like, should he have to? Oh, he could just get a new phone number. Right. But that's a pain. In this particular case, we did file a restraining order specifically based on harassment, not on threats, not on any other kind of violence, not on stalking, just on harassment. And one of the things that the court said was, oh my gosh, he asked you to stop and you didn't. You kept calling every minute, sometimes within the same minute. You sent email after email after email at 2 in the morning, 2:10 in the morning, 2:12 in the morning, 2:15 in the morning, all the way up until 6:30 a.m. And you did it day after day after day. He didn't communicate with you. He asked you to stop. And he never really did anything to show that this was warranted or a two-way conversation. So, yep, the court considered it harassment and issued the restraining order. The restraining order was short, though, because, again, they didn't have really any interaction. And it was more to tell the woman, hey, if you don't knock it off, then we're going to make this for longer or indefinite. She got a 6-month restraining order against her. He was protected. Fortunately, in that case, she complied, realized they were not destined to be together, and moved on. That's not what happened in that baby reindeer show that was all over Netflix, right? Which I did. I did it. I Googled to see how much of it was real and how much of it was drama. At the end of it, I don't know who the crazy person was. Are we even allowed to call somebody crazy? Maybe it was her, maybe it was him, but he had so many opportunities to be like, cut it out. Anyway, I digress. This is not about baby reindeer. This is about harassment, stalking, and threats. So now we know what harassment is. Now, I'm not saying that you can have less than that and it won't be considered harassment. I'm just trying to show you in a situation where the judge did come in and say, yep, that was not just a little too much. That was harassment. One of the things in this case that the court really emphasized was the fact that he had said stop, and there had been no indication that he wanted to restart it again. That's different than baby reindeer, right? He said stop, and then the next thing he's screwing her in an alleyway. Talk about mixed signals. Every time I've seen harassment in the court did not find mixed signals. Got it? All right, so now let's move on to stalking. What is stalking? Well, again, we have colloquial definitions where we use it all the time, like, oh my God, he's stalking me. That's not going to cut it in court. When we're talking about stalking, we're talking about a pattern of behavior. If you see somebody all the time in the Starbucks drive-thru, that doesn't necessarily mean they're stalking you. Maybe you both happen to go to Starbucks on your way to work, and this is the Starbucks, right? There are lots of times, especially in small communities or when you're living in the same circle, that you might meet somebody and pass them. And just because you don't like them and you wish you didn't come in contact with them doesn't necessarily mean it's stalking. Let's take a quick break. If you're navigating the twists and turns of divorce, you might be wondering, getting divorced, now what? That's actually the title of my upcoming book, designed to guide you through the challenging and emotional process of divorce. It's packed with real-life stories, expert tips, and motivational insights to empower you every step of the way. While it's not available just yet, you can join the waitlist to make sure you don't miss out. Head over to rachelkingattorney.com to sign up to be the first to get a copy and enter to win a free signed copy as soon as it releases. Arm yourself with the knowledge to move forward confidently through this challenging time. Now let's get back to the show. Following somebody could be considered stalking. I had a conversation where this woman felt like she was being stalked. She ran into a man that she knew previously at the gas station. They ran into each other at the gas station. She didn't know him. She knew him from some kind of dating episode, called it off. They hadn't seen each other in a while. She did have to change her phone number and do some things like that to try and escape his behavior. Okay, so then it all goes away. She doesn't hear from him. Then they accidentally run into each other in the gas station. And from there, he gets behind her in his car and he follows her. Well, the first time it happened, he turned off. So when we presented that to the court said, I don't know if that was stalking. I mean, maybe you guys were just driving in the same direction. And she's like, no, that's super weird. Like, he doesn't live anywhere near me. I was headed home. He knows exactly all of these things. He was right behind me. None of this is indicative of just somebody driving. But the court didn't agree. The court said, I think maybe it wasn't enough. All right. So you win some, you lose some. But then on a pattern of behavior, the gentleman was at the gas station, would follow her, go farther and farther each time till ultimately he followed her all the way to where she lived. When she pulled into her driveway, he drove past. Still maybe not considered stalking, except then the pattern continued. And now she saw him driving up and down the street at all different hours, sometimes parked along in front of her house, down the road on the block, would follow her to wherever she was going. Again, slowly increasing the amount of time that he was following her. He ended up figuring out where she worked, showing up in that parking lot, following her to the grocery store, waiting while she shopped for groceries, and then following her back. This was enough for the court to say, yes, now that's stalking. Now it goes beyond coincidence or annoyance, and it is so likely that it's very plausible that you are being stalked. So in that case, the court did say, yes, we have stalking, issued the restraining order. That one was, I believe, for 2 years, though I can't remember exactly. Again, in this case, we are not talking any other forms of communication. There were no conversations. There was no threats. There was really no harassment like we talked about before. There was just this pattern of always watching and following. That's super creepy, definitely unnerving, especially when you already had to block the dude and be like, I'm just not that into you. So, what is threats? I can tell you, more often than not, when I would watch people go in and get a restraining order on a threat, when the court said, what do they say? Well, they threatened me. Well, what did they say? Oh, they threatened me. They threatened to kill me. What did they say? They threatened to take away my kids, to cut me off. They threatened all of these things. And in every single, again, more often than not, every single response included the word threat. But the word threat is a legal term of art. The judge gets to make the decision on when it, or if it actually amounts to being a threat. The answer you want to give to the court is, he told me he was going to kill me. He told me that he was going to lock me out and not let me have any of our finances anymore. Or I was going to be taken to the cleaners and he was going to take our kids back to the country that he comes from. He told me that he was going to have somebody stalk me. He told me he was going to have somebody kill me. He told me he was going to strangle me. It could be she's too, right? I'm just a woman, so I use the he's. The actual words, the phrase, is what is said. And then if it is considered a threat by the court, then the court will make the appropriate decision. But again, it's not your decision to decide whether it's a threat. It's the court's decision. So you want to tell the court exactly what happened, using a text message, using the emails, using the recordings if you recorded legally. You not liking what was said does not actually make it a threat. It being argumentative, toxic even, doesn't always amount to a threat. Certainly if there is, I'm going to kill you if, yeah, that could be a threat. Absent the outright words, feeling threatened is different than it actually being a threat. In all circumstances, you want to describe the incident using the exact words and the exact actions, and you want to stay away from saying you feel threatened. No, you feel fear. You were afraid because you believed the things and the actions that the person was taking against you, but that's different than you saying that you were threatened. So, in all of these cases, you want to understand that harassment, stalking, and threats are specific legal definitions, and you want to give the court all of the information so the court can decide, were you threatened? Were you stalked? Were you harassed? And in that case, the court has the information to grant the restraining order. On a side note, or whatever it is you're asking for. But on a side note, the standard in restraining orders, let me just throw this out there since we're on it, is different. Preponderance of the evidence in a domestic violence restraining order is different than clear and convincing evidence that's necessary in a civil harassment restraining order. And all of these are potentially different in the different kinds of restraining orders than you're getting. And that means you have a higher level that you have to convince the court that it actually occurred. So more evidence is always better. You going in and saying, he said all of this to me, and then he's going to walk in and be like, I never said any of it. Okay, now we're just like at a he said, she said, what is it, 50% likely? That doesn't even amount to the 51% that's necessary in a preponderance of the evidence. So any outside evidence that you can bring in, text messages, videos, recordings, other people testifying, will all help you in your case. Now you know the difference between stalking, harassment, and threats. And next time you're sitting around Netflixing it up, you watching Baby Reindeer, you can come in and say to all of your friends, be that annoying person that says, oh my gosh, that's not what this is, or oh my gosh, he should do that. You can be the annoying Netflix lawyer telling them how it actually works. That wraps up another episode of Gavels Down, Voices Up. If you found value in our discussion today, please subscribe, leave a review, and share with someone who needs these insights. Your engagement helps us grow and impact more lives. I'm Rachel King, thanking you for listening and reminding you to speak up, because every voice deserves to be heard.